attention, it's Joe time.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another episode of Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you. What is going on today? I am Mr. VashSky, and with me, as always, and thankfully, is the amazing, the one, the only Lou, Wasserman's Ghost. What is going on there,
I hope
Lou?
I'm the only, because I don't think I could stand two of me. I could be a clone, you know. Everybody's a clone in Hollywood, right?
Well, that's a fair point. That's an interesting idea right there. Two Lou's. I don't know. You know what? We will keep you in ghostal form. We're gonna go ahead and go with that because
sounds like a weather report. And the coastal information is ghostal, or I don't know. Anyway, people are already chatting away about the 1950s and great movies. Oh yeah. I see they're talking about Silk Stockings and Ninochka, one of which was the original non-musical version with Melvin Douglas and Garbo, and the other, of course, was Fred Astaire and Sid Charisse. The songs are so wonderful. There's that song about in Siberia area where the snow is so superior. Those are the kind of lyrics that stick in my head, but then they do.
Yes, in the best way possible. That is for sure.
And one of the best songs about the movies in a movie is that song about it in wonderful cinemascope and stereoscope and Tadeo and stereophonic sound. Remember that number? No? Well, watch the movie. You'll see it.
Yes. I will. I actually have to watch a couple of those movies. You know, my 1950s catalog is not as robust as I would like.
So I heard that about you. But anyway.
I love this as well. Josh Hammond, thank you so much for joining us and moderating, as always, Tangent Ramblings with Lou and you. Absolutely, 100%. That's the best part of the show, by the way, is that we get to go off and do whatever we want. And today we're taking a stab, like I said, at the, Legends, Lore, Backstories, and More, I believe, is the tagline for this
title. Why didn't we think of that? Anyway.
That is pretty good, right? I was typing that up.
I think we're okay with the one we got.
Absolutely, 100%. I do agree. Now, Lou, I kind of wanted to bring something to your attention because I really wanted to get your sense of I guess, this current Hollywood trend and maybe how it relates to how they did business before. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of current news right now. Don't worry, folks. We're taking it back to vintage in just a moment here. But apparently the Lando series has been canceled, no longer be made, according to series head Justin Simien. Now, I bring this up because I'm thinking back. Solo came out in 2018, and this was supposed to be the spiritual successor of that film via series on Disney+. And there's a big famous, was a Kathleen Kennedy presentation where she had Lando back there. So I'm thinking this might have been in development for 4, 5, maybe even 6 years before it was actually canned or scrapped. Lou, in your experience, is it normal to develop a show for 6 years?
Well, we've given here and on Genre Guys a good example of that when I mentioned about getting it right before you spend the big money on actually putting it on film with Demolition Man, where they said that it was 6 years in the gestation before they ever shot it. I'm sort of offended by this guy. I mean, all right, theoretically, if movies like Your Kid, but this comparison of his show getting canceled to a child dying, that offends the crap out of me. I'm sorry. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
And the fact that I had an elder brother who died as an infant has nothing to do with my opinion. But I sure know what my parents went through. So anyway, but then you have a lot of people out there who are never going to have kids. And I guess they think it's all the same. You know, it's not the same with a movie. It's not the same, I'm sorry to say, with all respect, with your puppy or your kitty or your goldfish. There was a place in Hollywood. Why can't I think of the name of it now? But they sold what we call consumables. You know, they sold Sharpies and pads and blank call sheets and printed materials. It was really originally a printing press company that branched out into being kind of the staples of the movie industry. And they used to have these buttons that you would see every grip in town wearing that said, "Remember, it's only a movie." So, you know,
Yes, that's a great line there, and to be selling them in that town.
and as far as this particular one is concerned,
Mhm.
I don't know. He's unhappy because, on the other hand, it's been his paycheck for 6 years, right? Developing, 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 developing. Should have sent it to Photomat. He would have got it back sooner from the developers. But
I was gonna say, Lou. I mean,
no, but I mean
to
that
develop,
phrase "in development" is used, overused, underused all the damn time. So I
right?
don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was necessarily going to the Lucasfilm offices every day, clocking in and trying to develop this series. I'm sure you have your spurts of script writing or so forth or something that the
Well,
studio.
you know what you do. You turn it in and you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait, and then they call you into a meeting and they tell you what they liked and what they didn't like, and
Right.
they say go back and do it again, or they bring in somebody else, and this just goes on and on. And if it's making it better, great. I personally think it is probably possible to know whether it's going to fly or not before 6 years have gone by. But that's just me.
Absolutely, and there's been so
I mean, the
many.
big question for anybody who's actually in charge is
Mhm,
it the property that's wrong or is it the person doing it?
mhm.
So anyway.
Well, it depends on which person you're
I
asking
mean,
about, because if
in
it's
the old Hollywood days, you had 50 writers over there in the writers' building, each one with a desk, and each one being told they have to turn in X number of pages a week, and they're getting
mhm,
paid 500, 1,000, 2,000, and we're talking some big names who used to do that for a living: Dashiell
mm,
Hammett and Raymond Chandler,
mhm.
and lots of big authors that wound up getting a gig in Hollywood, and that was their job. So
Mm. Yeah, I would say if it's Kathleen Kennedy who is approving all these projects, or I would say approving, maybe that's a strong word, is trying to develop all these projects or
well,
touting them before they're even at a point where they've initially been approved. Just doesn't seem like the best idea. But go ahead.
on the other hand, an individual executive's prestige may be dependent on, well, how many projects have you got in the hopper? You know,
That's a fair
so
point.
and yes, Jan Monroe, it does mean it's been passed around to different people. But if it's the same person on top saying, "I like that, I don't like that," all those different people in the world are not going to make much of a difference. It's that old joke of mine. The most important part of your car is the nut that holds the wheel. So
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. And I would think that passing it around to all those people. I mean, everybody's got to get paid for their time, right? So I just
something, but not production money. I mean,
right.
so
Uh, my
I mean,
goodness,
if you
goodness.
have 10 different people developing, that's one budget item in your monthly nut. You know what I mean? So anyway, I don't know. We're probably all better off that it isn't happening, is all I can say.
Oh,
Not saying
I'm
that
not
isn't an
disputing
interesting
that.
character. Not saying that, well, what was Billy D like when he was a lad? Isn't an interesting place to go,
Mhm.
but if they couldn't figure it out after all this time, they ain't gonna. That's all.
Well, the movie, was the first cataclysmic failure of the Star Wars brand, and that was back in 2018. It just seemed like
It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder if the plans to spin off from it were a face save first and a creative idea second.
ooh.
Well, the movie may have failed, but at least we got that Lando series out of it.
That's interesting.
There's ego everywhere, everywhere, as far as the eye can see. It's ego.
Right. and
So
and nobody wants to be nobody wants to have something be attributed to them for something failing,
well,
right? Because everybody's
yeah,
trying to keep their job.
and they sometimes they want to be the boss, but they don't want to be the scapegoat if things go wrong, and so they kind of
Mm.
distance themselves from the authority that they're otherwise very happy to wear as a mantle of their greatness and why they're worth the big bucks. Anyway, we said that 50 times. What else you got?
What else do I have? I got a couple of things here. Very interesting. I was going over some of our comments from our previous videos, and I found a couple of entries here that I think you might like, Lou. So, Sorceress 1986 says, Lou, I recently met with an executive in a general meeting. I'm a screenwriter, and he mentioned that 3-camera live audience sitcoms were probably going to make a comeback. I'm sorry, that I guess camera live audience sitcoms are probably going to make a comeback because you can churn them out so fast. Found that interesting.
Well,
Unfortunately,
he's
I don't have any
wrong.
of those. in my arsenal.
He's
Okay.
wrong.
All
And
right.
they're
Well, go
four
ahead.
camera now, not 3. So it's been a long time since they used only 3. And
Okay.
he's wrong because it's not about the physical production. Sure, you do it in about 3 or 4 days as far as the script is done, the set's built, and now we're going to rehearse it and shoot it in front of an audience. Yeah, that's fast.
Right.
But getting to that point with scripts and characters that matter is no faster or slower than anything else if it's any good. As far as having any of those in your arsenal, that there's a whole art to those that I could go on about for quite a while, and probably will here in a second. But let's get to that. The answer is no. You won't have any code because you won't meet me because I'm done. I ain't there no more. So if you're there, more power to you. I hope you can afford to live there. But it's no. I don't pull my ear or wiggle my nose like Samantha on. Whatever. I just don't. I'm sorry. I don't. But as far as what makes a good one, as far as multi-camera
Mhm.
shows, and I've done a few. Boy, have I done a few, like about 300 episodes or so.
Mhm.
Um, I will never forget talking with one showrunner, executive producer, writer, creator one time on one of the shows that I did. And he talked about how it was difficult to find a setting that worked and how people had pitched him different kinds of shows over the years. And he said one guy pitched him this fantastic, and it was a good script, and it was funny, and it was an ensemble script that took place in an office at the IRS. And he said, I don't care how funny it is. I don't care how talented the people are. People out there in audience land will not find IRS people charming, amusing, funny, and people they want to spend a half an hour a week of the rest of their lives with. I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. There have
Mhm.
been shows over the years that have had to overcome that problem. One would be Major Dad, because one of the things they learned surveying was that people thought Marines were wise asses and stuck up and nasty because that's the way they had been portrayed in the past. And so that had to overcome that obstacle. Um, a bar where everybody knows your name, yeah, fine. But the other thing, of course, you can have a killer pilot. You can have a fantastic setup. But the question becomes, does it have the legs to run 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seasons and still be fresh? Some do, some do not. If I could give you a magic formula, I would, but you got to think long term with these things. On the
I
other
think
hand,
you're.
now that they're making them in 8 and 10 episode things instead of 20 and 30, maybe not quite so much.
Yeah, we definitely have a question relating to that specific thing, but
Yeah.
I I guess I the setup matters for sure. Story matters a lot, and the sustainability. I think that's a great point because some ideas aren't as sustainable as they might appear on paper. Maybe it's best to have a mini series, for example, right? I know, like, it's kind of interesting. It got me thinking about that IRS, a plot line there. I'm like, I'm thinking it's like, yeah, what is necessarily appealing about, I don't know, 8 people working in an office in some paper factory in Scranton, Pennsylvania, right? It's like that doesn't seem that great, but then it's like, oh, it works out very, very well. Obviously, it's not a 4-camera sitcom, and it had the British version in which to launch off from. But it's just very interesting how you do have to overcome those problems
Well, but I also think on that show they picked the stereotypes of the different people that populate that office. That
yeah,
everybody who worked in an office knew at least one of them. You know,
yes,
um,
yes,
But I see where one of our chatters, Nita, said she loved Major Dad. Me too. I happen to know a little bit about that show and had friends who worked on it.
Mhm.
And first of all, the Marines loved the show and they hated Gomer Pyle because they said, we're glad that you're funny. And the general in the later episodes is a little bit of a whack job and whatever, but it's not the same thing as being disrespectful. And they felt that Gomer Pyle made them all look like idiots. And I know that show was very, very careful to have the Marine technical advisor there all the time. So they knew when they should be wearing their hat and when they shouldn't, and when they should be saluting and when they shouldn't. And all that stuff was right every single time. And because of that, the Marines gave them whatever they wanted, including helicopters and Humvees and all kinds of things. And I know they held some rap parties at the Marine base in El Toro in Orange County, not far from Disneyland, at the golf club there that was set up. So they had a very good relationship with the Corps. Now, that show was supposed to go another season, but here's what happened. That was, you may remember that Gerald McRaney, the star of the show, was pretty political to the conservative side and didn't care who knew it. And you may also know that right about the time that Major Dad ended was when Bill Clinton got elected. And what somebody had the bright idea to do was do another season and have, quote unquote, our Marines become the Marine detail at the White House, in the Clinton White House, so they could have a little political humor friction between Mackey and the residents of the big white mansion. The problem, of course, with that was you'd have to build all new sets. So Universal wanted CBS to pay for it, and CBS wanted Universal to pay for it. And finally, neither one of them did. And they put the show out for syndication and found that they weren't getting as much money as they wanted to get. But on the other hand, Paramount had a similar situation with Wings, which you might all remember, where it was out there for syndication, but not quite as good. Well, as you may or may not know, Paramount and Universal co-owned the USA network. And so they decided to syndicate those two shows to themselves, in effect, and put them on as a comedy hour in syndication on USA. And so that's how they got their recompense on those shows. So that's the kind of deals that happen in Hollywood anyway.
That's so interesting. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. You know, that reminds me of a story that actually happened recently in the production for Oppenheimer. So do you know, Lou, that Gary Oldman plays, I believe, Harry Truman in that film?
Yeah.
He was only available for one day, and they needed to get a White House set, a very convincing White House set, in 2 weeks or something. I mean, it was a massive turnaround time. And I guess the production team, they went into the archives of the sets in a box, basically.
Right.
All the major studios.
The term in the business for a set that you're going to take down but put in storage for use later is fold and hold, by the way.
Fold and hold. Okay.
Well, fold and hold, yes.
And they found one that was acceptable, pulled it out, and they basically, completely restored it, made it show ready in no time flat. It was a Herculean
Well, it had to be
task
period ready too, because maybe if it had been used before, it was used in a later incarnation of the White House or an earlier one. I mean, the Oval Office is the Oval Office, but the wallpaper and the carpet and everything else changes from season to president to era. So
you're totally right, and it's all those things, right? And just for Gary Oldman to be there that one day that they had him for that.
Well, and the other place they could have gone, and I bet they looked into it, but it didn't work out. The various presidential libraries often have a duplicate of the office. I've got a photograph of my mother sitting at the Resolute desk at the George W. Museum in Dallas, because they've got a mock-up of it there, and there's a mock-up, I know, at the Reagan Museum in Simi Valley, and several others are out there. Now, I mentioned when we did Airport with the genre guys, that set that they originally built of the 707 They literally built it in this kind of shed-like building, but they called it. Uh, Later, they added a 747 mock-up to it, and they called it Stage 747. And every TV show that had anybody flying anywhere would put in a scene of dialogue on that airplane because it was there, it was lit, it was set, and it was basically free. You didn't have to add to your budget. So every show that shot on the lot wound up using it a lot. And I think at one time, I seem to remember they had the two aisles pulled wide apart so they could drive the studio tram right through it.
Really?
Yeah. It was located just over there behind, the movie theater where the 1 point whatever many gigawatts car disappears with the flaming tire tracks to the left of the courthouse. It was right behind their location. But
wow.
Anyway,
that's fun.
Yeah, for a while the tour drove through there.
Well, the tour drove through a lot of places. Apparently, it drove through the prop shop at one point.
Not the shop, the warehouse. My God, that was the biggest warehouse for props other than separate prop houses. As far as on the lot stuff, Universal kept everything and did a big business of it. And of course, they dressed up this one aisle that the tram was going to go through to have normally you'd have all the paintings in one place and all the chandeliers in one place and all that, because a production designer would walk through and say, give me that one, not that one, not that one. But for this, they had everything all in one thing. And I think they had props that were memorable from various TV shows, like the paintings from Night Gallery and a few other odds and ends like that, as I recall.
That is super cool. I'll try to find some VHS.
That's out towards the back gate. That's a big building, but
huge building, huge. I just never knew that the tram went through there. I mean, that's so crazy. To have that happen. Very, very cool. We have a couple of questions here coming rolling in here. Jan Monroe, isn't the current 8 or 10 episode season the equivalent of a 1980 miniseries? Not quite an episodic TV show.
Well, maybe, but because the formats are so short. Remember, all of those great epic miniseries were all at least an hour, if not an hour and a half per episode over 4 nights or 6 nights or whatever they ran. So the fact that these things are 25, 30 minutes long, it's not quite the same thing. In fact, I would suggest that most of the series that I've seen, and I will be very specific and say things like Picard and a lot of them, it's about 3 episodes worth of plot stretched to 8 or 10. And every so often, everybody just sits down and talks about life, the universe, and their navel gazing to kind of pad things out. So
terrible.
If you look back at things like Rich Man, Poor Man, or The Winds of War, or the big TV epic miniseries, they didn't do that.
There you go, right here. Was able to find it for everybody at home. There you go, 1980s footage of the studio tour, driving straight through the prop warehouse on the back.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Super cool. Had no idea this actually was a thing until relatively recently.
Oh yeah.
So cool. Man, video tour. So awesome.
But you can see how they dressed the set of the passageway to show off the breadth of the collection, so to speak.
Right. That's so cool. That is absolutely amazing right there. And what's even more amazing than that is Captain John D making his glorious return right here with $10 IRS agents in the Squid Game. I'd watch. Happy Sunday, fellas. Thank you so much, good sir. Hopefully that came through right there. Thank you so much. Awesome stuff. Love that, Captain. Expect a call from me later on. Maybe today. I don't know. You'll see. Thank you so much. Very much appreciate all the support you provided for all of our channels. Thank you. Let's see here. I think there was somebody else who had a question. Oh, yes. Josh Hammond. Maybe they could do a show on the wacky failed Secret Service agents. Maybe it's too soon or bad taste.
Yes, both of those.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to necessarily do that. I will say, Lou, I don't know if you saw, but Jonas and I, we were going over the Captain America 4 trailer, and we were watching it. And we were doing the whole thing, and I was like, whoa, did they just attempt a unliving effort on the president in that film and put it in the trailer? I was like, they probably need to pull those ads. Sure enough, they have adjusted their advertisements to remove that scene based on, well, recent events.
And when they tracked it down, they found out it was the same person who put Bluey into the campgrounds at the studio, right? I mean, the level of lack of supervision that's going on nowadays, from movies to TV shows to theme parks to what have you. It just, I understand the term middle management is not exactly a compliment, but you'd think competence would have something to do with it, or at least competent enough to ask a question first.
You would think so. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just absolutely insane, where it's like, guys, this could potentially get us into trouble, especially during an election season. Let's not go ahead and put that in. Let's save that for the movie itself or something like that. But nope, they put the stuff in, and obviously now we have to spend, I don't even know how much money it is. What do you suspect, Lou? To pull ads and send different ads out?
Well, it's cheaper now than it used to be because it's all digital, and bang, boom, here it is. But
that's a fair point.
They can make things having never happened.
Well, that would take planning and foresight and, intelligence. Let's see here.
Nate is asking a very interesting question about control over the script. Here's what you have to understand about writing in... Oh, here's another question, but we'll get to that one in a second. But let me finish with this one.
Yep.
Writing has two different results. If you're writing something on spec, you own it. If you're writing for the theater, you own it. If you are writing something for hire or selling said script, you don't own it anymore. And if you think about it, it makes sense because there is a physical result called a piece of film or video or whatever that somebody has to physically control and own and copyright and all the rest of it. So the answer about how much control, even if you get a super duper unusual contract that says, I have final cut, I have creative control, good luck getting it in the movies or TV. On the other hand, that is why a Writers Guild contract is a sales contract, but a Dramatists Guild contract, and the Dramatists Guild is for writers of plays and the musicians and lyricists for musicals, and the book writer, as they call it. That's a lease. And the reason it's a lease is because when you open on Broadway and you play for your 500 performances and everybody's happy, when it's over, it's over. There's nothing left physically except the script itself, which is still owned by the writer, because at the same time, somebody else is doing it in Kansas City and somebody else is doing it in London. And many years from now, somebody else is doing it at your local high school. And all of those are paying royalties back in the form of basically a lease to the original author. So that's the science, the mentality of it. And in fact, that reminds me, I forget whether we went into detail or not, but we were going to talk about residuals. And the concept of residuals is that you're getting paid for your performance's use a second time, similar to what I just said about scripts for the theater. So you can just think of a movie or TV contract as a sales contract. You sold your car to the other guy. It's now his car, and you can't tell him what color to paint it or where to drive it or how fast. On the other hand, if you lease a car, you don't own it, they own it, and they'll take it back if they don't like what you did with it. And that is why this whole issue of final cut or control over the content in the theater is no issue at all, because they can't change a word without your say-so as an author, because you own it. They don't. Movies, not so much. You're very welcome, Nina. Happy to fish that out for you. Now, meanwhile, what was that other question?
Yes. Let me see here. I was trying to find that clip that Jonas plays. They don't have the rights, but I don't have that on my side, so Maybe next
Oh yeah,
time
the
for
one
that one.
from Saving Mr. Banks.
Say Mr. Banks.
Right.
This one from SD Lively 27. Is this why the seasons of TV shows are shorter than they used to be in the 1990s and before? Before it was 24 episodes per season.
Well,
But
the amount of minutes in an episode
Mhm.
has to do with advertising. That's all. And also, I think there is much less of a tendency now than there used to be to have a really good opening theme song and sequence, and closing credits are faster.
Mhm.
So, but as I have explained, I think I've told this story to you, but I don't remember if we told it here. If we did, sorry, here it is again.
Here we
I
go.
was doing a show one time that had not yet gotten on the air. We were shooting it knowing it was going to be a mid-season replacement. And we got word back that one scene that we'd shot of an episode like 2 episodes ago got screwed up in the lab somehow, and we had to do it again. So they brought in the footage that was ruined but viewable by us, so we could match everything, right? Get everything, because how much of the original shoot and how much of the new shoot were going to be cut together, everything from where the dishes were on the table to everything else had to match. And I saw something that I had never seen before. The footage they gave us coming in had 9 sets of time code. And for those who don't know what time code is, maybe you could find a picture someplace, Vash, that'll show them what time code looks like. Time
Mhm.
code is what the editor uses when you're cutting from camera A to B to C to everything being in sync with each other. And it's literally a digital code number running at the speed of light, it seems like, at the bottom of the screen. But there's usually 1. This had 9. Why? Because in those days, you may remember that the TV networks were putting in these news breaks. Where, between the shows, they'd put in 2 minutes of watches at 11 o'clock to see what's going on with the president or whatever it happened to be. Well, every one of those news breaks was slightly different in length for reasons having to do with commercials and how much time they had to give the local station versus the national commercials. Anyway, that's why they were 9, because we didn't know which one was going to happen. So the editors were making 9 versions of every show. And then when they got the time slot, they'd say, oh, it's version 4, and that'll be the one we'll use. Clipping microseconds off of a scene to make it fit into that slightly shorter. There you go, time code. Now, I see Nook asking about Bob Denver, saying he got nothing for he got something. He just didn't get much. The reruns, the residuals have a time limit, and they have a descending scale. Oh, I know. It was when we were discussing the new contract that we were talking about this. Nobody who did Gilligan's Island or Star Trek or anything else thought it was going to run for years and years and years and years and years. And the guilds certainly didn't, or they would have negotiated a longer term for residuals. But usually, I think it was like the first 11 showings, and the percentage that you got went down as it got older because it was less likely to happen. So, yeah, they don't go forever unless you're a superstar and you own a piece of the action, on a feature in particular.
That's very true. Now, to go back to ST's question just for a second, this was in response to the IATSE contract and everything. Now, I understand what you are saying, Lou. I'm not disagreeing at all. But is there any other reasons for maybe shorter runtimes for these shows, or not as many episodes?
Well, because
forward?
like we said in the IA contract, that extra residual they were inventing to pay off the debts of the pension plan,
right,
was based on the amount of length of the show. So if you wanted to pay less, you make the shows a little shorter and you get to pay less. And it may not sound like a lot take Acolyte, which was $200 million. And we're talking a difference between, I think it was 1,500 an episode versus 2,500 an episode. Right. But still, every little bit helps.
Well, if you're a big studio and you're making, 10, 15 shows a year or whatever, or how many you end up bankrolling, it all adds up.
Also, we used to do, in the wonderful world of TV back before all of this modern nonsense, what we used to call a bottle show, where basically you'd have one episode a year or every 2 years that said, boy, I remember the good old days when we, and then it'd be a flashback to Reverend Jim's story or somebody else's story. And what they would do is basically they were stealing a show from the crew, because you'd shoot a show and a scene, and next week a show and a scene, and next week a show and a scene. And before you know it, you had a whole extra episode in those show and a scenes, but you paid everybody for the week regardless, because it wasn't that much of a big deal to do an extra scene of 3 to 5 minutes, but you put 6 or 7 of them together and surprise, there's an extra episode. And one less week overall that you're shooting that season. So they're all those.
I can tell you right now, the audience, or at least I didn't. I hated those episodes because it was like, dang it, man.
Well,
like, you cheated me out of an episode here. It's all the stuff.
Well, it was new material, but it was just formatted a little differently. On the other hand, you had shows like, like Tracy Ullman's show, which is how, of course, The Simpsons got started, which was basically, in another era, that would have been her standing out in front of a curtain like Carol Burnett or somebody else with a variety show, and they would do the sketches, in between. But it was a sketch show without that format. So, and The Simpsons were one of the sketches, and suddenly they were worthy of spinning off into their own thing. But it all depended. Some people were there working by the week, and some people were getting paid by the episode. I know somebody who did one of those shows, and they shot 4 or 5 sketches that week, but they didn't use them all in the same episode. And that person was on a per episode rate. So the question became, are they getting paid for one or getting paid for 2, because they're doing part of one another? So there's all these little refinements and curiosities in the wonderful world of contracts. And they get worked out eventually.
Very, very fascinating, very interesting. Oh boy, this is Hollywood is a very interesting place. Now, I'm not correct here, suggesting that Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz actually kept the rights to the Lucy show?
Yeah, well, Desi, basically. It was their company, but it was Desi's idea. In those days, the only recording of these shows, because the shows were in those days, the TV shows were all going out live. And the only recording is a thing called a kinescope. And what a kinescope is basically a 16 millimeter camera looking at a little 3-inch by 5-inch cathode ray tube in black and white, which is probably flickering a little comparison to the frame rate with the film camera versus the video camera. And it's there more or less for archival purposes. It's not really broadcast quality. And when they got ready to do Lucy, and the reason for that is it's cheaper to just shoot it, put it out there, and they never had any concept of syndication and reruns and the fact that these things would live forever, because by and large, radio shows didn't. The only thing and TV was following in the footsteps of radio. And the only reason that radio recorded their shows was so that they wouldn't have to do them twice. They would, in some shows, especially the ones made in LA, they'd all come in, they'd do the show for the East Coast, they'd go out and have dinner, come back and do it again for the West Coast. So they have these transcription records, which if you've never, maybe you can find a picture where it's a massive vinyl record. But again, not really broadcast quality. That's what we get. If you go look up old radio shows on YouTube, what you're hearing are those transcription records, because there was no tape and there was wire recording, but that's a whole other story. I actually owned one. A wire recorder. But anyway, Desi went to them and said, listen, if I film it, can I keep the film? And they said, if you're crazy enough to spend the money to, there you go. And that doesn't quite give the scale, because that still looks like 16 inches. Okay. But it's hard to tell from that picture that it's as big as it is.
I'll try to find some scale.
Anyway, that's all right. But I own a couple, actually. But they said, why would you want to do that? He said, well, I don't know. I just want to have it that way. Because also remember that on a live broadcast, the cut that you are seeing at home is being cut live as it happens too. There's a guy called a technical director. You'll see that credit on a video show. And he's literally standing there in front of the panel of A camera, B camera, C camera with a fader switch. And the director is saying, ready A, cut A, ready B, back to A. And he's calling the shots as he's watching all the monitors. and that's a live cut. Well, on these film shows, no. On the film shows, you've got a 3 or later 4 gang, and they call it moviola. In fact, I'm sure there's a picture of one of those out there. The 4 gang moviola. I think Barney Miller was the show that started doing that. But the point is, you've got all 4 angles, all 4 cameras, or all 3 cameras, and you're literally cutting the film just like you would cut a motion picture. The difference being that if you're shooting a motion picture, you're shooting the master, and then you're shooting. Well, that's a synchronizer, but I'm talking about the actual moviola. But you see how each of those wheels has these sprocket holes that the film goes in, and it keeps them in line with one another. But yeah, see, that's not a moviola. That's a synchronizer. It's called. Moviola made them, so the company made them. That's why it got brought up in that search.
Gotcha.
But anyway, they used to call it the 4-headed monster when I used to see them. But and then they got fancier with machines with editing tables and all kinds of goodies. But the point is, yeah, you're right. That's what made their fortune, was owning those shows, owning that film. And the rest, as they say, is Star Trek and Mission Impossible. Because I don't know how many people know that, but Lucy was the executive producer, and her company, their company, made both Mission Impossible and Star Trek from the proceeds that they made from the sitcoms that they did, including the I Love Lucy show. So there you go. There's your 6 degrees of warp drivification or something like that.
Maybe.
There.
Possibly.
Well, that's a moviola anyway. That's a 2 gang, I guess. Yeah, because
2
you
gang,
can see
yeah.
But
I can't find
enough. Well, they're out there somewhere. But that's a real old one. Look at those big tubes down below in the sound bar.
Yeah, vacuum
Wow.
tubes. Oh boy.
Wow.
I have dealt with those because well, what I stand in front of for every single
Those
one
of
these
you
shows.
young don't remember, but in the old days, every drugstore, all the Rite Aids and Rexalls and that sort of thing, had a tube tester. You brought your tubes in from home and plugged them into the different sockets for the different sizes, and it would light them up and tell you if they were still working or not, so that they could sell you a new one. Because if your radio went out, you didn't know which one was the bad one. So you'd bring them all in and test your tubes and get the replacements for the ones you needed. But and of course, the tube was replaced by the transistor.
Yes,
not to be confused nowadays with a transistor, but that's a whole other story. There you go. A tube testing table. There you go.
Yes. Well, you know, the people who still play electric guitar know all about vacuum tubes because, well,
right.
For us,
and there is an argument that the
audiophiles,
sound is better with tubes versus transistors, but I don't know.
well,
At a certain point, it's frequencies only your dog can hear. You know. So.
I swear by them. Like I said, I have a tube amp behind me that I stand in front of every single one of these shows. So I swear by them, but I do hear the argument.
Many people swear at them, but that's another story.
Yeah, that's very true as well. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. We have a question here from Nita again. Lou, my favorite movie is The Fountainhead, the sexiest movie ever. Why do modern writers just not know how to film a love or sexy scene with subtle and implied, but no romance anymore in films? What do you think?
Well, now, Nita, you've been hearing me for a few weeks now plugging a book that I was reading, which I finished recently, called City of Nets, about Hollywood. And if you would like to read the great and enormous detailed history of that movie and of Ayn Rand's time in Hollywood, you should read that book. I can't go into all the details here because we'd be here all day just doing that. But I agree with you. It's a wonderful movie. It did not do enormously well at the box office, I might add. But the whole story of that movie and so much more is in this book. It's pretty great. It's pretty great. So why do writers not know? Maybe because they have none in their lives. I mean, it is not, I think, revolutionary of me to suggest that in our modern era, the emphasis is on the biology, not on the emotionology of relationships. And that's a damn shame.
It It is a damn shame. I just recently was reading an article about Twisters. Obviously, the sequel to Twister that came out recently, and I believe Steven Spielberg suggested that they take out the kiss, or I guess the two leads in that film did kiss at the end, that they removed from that film. People were saying that it was better for it and so forth, and I don't know why there is a war on romance, but there is. It is very strange. It is very weird. It's very bizarre. And I'm not saying that every
Well,
single.
I would suggest,
Mhm,
and I can't cite any particular examples,
mhm.
but there's a war on honesty. There's a war
Yeah.
on truth, and true love should be just that, true. And so, if you want to say, "Oh, that's old fashioned," then you don't want people to remind you that it's not. So, there's my little philosophical, non-movie related, real life reaction. So, yeah, do get that book, Nita. It's just brilliant, and it goes into so many wonderful things about a big section on the blacklist, big and interesting section about all of the Europeans who were refugees from the Nazis and wound up in Hollywood, musicians and writers and playwrights and philosophers, and some interesting stuff. And all of the stuff about the movies and the stories, some of which you've heard, but some of which you probably haven't or heard as well. The guy is real interesting, this Otto Friedrich. He starts out by saying, I want you to know, first of all, I didn't do any interviews for this movie, for this book. I think all these people have been interviewed to death, and some of it's true, and some of it was done to press agents and is false. And I read them, and you'll hear some, but this is my interpretation and my observation. And he's pretty damn wise, this guy. He really, really is. And I mean, for example, we've talked on this program before about the consent decree and how it broke up the monopoly that the studios had on the theaters and production and distribution. And anywhere it's on, I got it on Amazon, Nita. It's and then you turn the page to the section that he's actually finally going to talk about the consent decree, and he says, and then everybody found out that this wonderful, marvelous money-making business they'd all been pursuing for the last 25 years was actually a criminal conspiracy, according to the Justice Department. So,
Whoa.
yeah. And then they explain it. But and that's also the one that I mentioned because we were so concentrating on IA, that IATSE was not the only everybody else union. But it was the one that had the backing of Frank Nitti, Al Capone's enforcer. So that's why they wound up being on top and the other guys didn't. Anyway, those were the days.
That's great.
Pretty great book.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
And that, of course, is the real Grauman's Chinese, folks, not the imitation in Orlando. Where, lo, I've seen so many great movies. My memorable first experience there, I think, and it may not have been the first time I was ever there, but I just remember it, was going to see Goldfinger there, my first James Bond movie as a young lad. And that was pretty great. That was pretty great. And by the way, the lobby area that you go through in Orlando, if it's still there since they switched it to the other show, but the one that was there when the great movie went, is very accurate to the real lobby of the Chinese. So
I have heard. I know they got the original blueprints in order to recreate it as best as they could. They really went through,
and of course,
meticulous
right
detail.
across the street is Disney's theater. The El Capitan, and just down the way is the Egyptian, which was also Grauman's. And I think I've told the story before. When I was growing up in Beverly Hills, our phone number was one number off from this theater.
Oh no!
And my father used to play with people. There's a very famous old-time mortuary company in Los Angeles called Grauman's, and people would call up, "Is this Grauman's China?" My father would put on his voice and go, "No, Grauman's. How may we help you in your hour of need?" But the funniest one that he did, and he did lots of those, But the funniest one, because my dad was a funny guy.
Hmm.
Somebody called up and said, "Is Mary Poppins playing there?" And he said, "No, but if I see her, I'll tell her to come right home." So, and we didn't live that close to that theater, but it's just that there were fewer phones and therefore prefixes and numbers spread over a wider area. Anyway.
That is hilarious. That is so funny.
Well, one time he said,
Well,
"Grandma Chinese laundry, no tiki, no shirty," that kind of stuff. So those were the days.
oh, that's great. That's great. Thank you so. that is absolutely fantastic right there.
And that's the theater
I guess it runs in
where
the family.
when they premiered Sense Around, this
Yep.
low frequency rumbling sound effect thing for the movies, they hung a cargo net over the audience because the ceiling of that theater has all these Chinese-y chandeliers and decorations. And I don't know whether they really were worried that they were going to vibrate them off the wall and have them fall on people, but it sure sold the idea that it was possible. It made you excited about being there to see that.
Yes, there are. I can't find them right now for some reason. I thought I had them in my collection, but there are a number of images that we have posted before on shows like this, going all about Sense Around and the setup they had in the Chinese Ramen Theater. It's just fascinating time to be alive. That is for sure. Let's see here. Yeah, Tom F. Nope, because I went solid state because of my back. Yeah, tube amplifiers, very, very, very heavy. And he also asks me, what guitars do you like? Yeah, I was a big Gibson fan. The only problem is that the company has declined so much in quality. It's and they had their, I don't know, they incorporated a lot of technology into their guitars for some reason for a while. I have no idea what was going on, but one of my favorite experiences playing a guitar was probably a Jackson, because that neck profile is just so absolutely unique. So I have a Randy Rhoads Jackson that I love dearly. Unfortunately, never stays in tune, which is not the greatest experience in the world, but absolutely love it. So thank you so much for that. But sometime I have to play for you guys and make a show of it, because
Yes.
Lou, I know you're talking about all the amazing scores that we can't feature on the show. It'd be nice to feature them at least in some way. If we can get around it.
Well, the legalities of that escape me, but I can show you my darling. Let's see. But of course, I don't have it anymore, but I sold it. But here we go. Let's see. How do I always forget how to do this. But I actually owned this 1930s Gibson tenor guitar, complete with its original case and everything.
No way.
Yeah, here, let me see if I can. How do I do that? Let's see.
You can share with me, or you can share your screen.
Well, now let me see. If I say copy as path, will that take you? Let's see here. Come back over here. Come back over here. Let's see what happens if I just paste this.
Mm-hmm.
There, try that.
Mm-mm.
No, that won't work.
Nope.
Okay.
Try send to me in Slack, and I'll see if I can
there we go. That's the
work
easy
with that.
way. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And as soon as we see Lou's guitar,
There
I'll go
it
ahead and
is.
pull out mine for the audience here. Whoa! Look at this! Look at this bad boy! Oh, folks,
Yeah.
you're gonna get a kick out of this. Look at this.
Yeah, I sold it a couple of years ago to a guy in Nashville, but it's
Man,
it was lovely, and and that's the original case. It was in that kind of shape, for God's sakes. That's
really?
Yes, you can see where the handle. I wrapped something made for a steering wheel around it because it was just a wire. But you can see all of that beautiful felt in there and everything. That was all original. So I even
Wow!
Yeah.
Holy smokes! 1930s.
Yeah, Django Reinhardt, eat your heart out.
Do you know what factory it was made out of?
No, it's Gibson, but after that, I don't have any idea.
Could have been Kalamazoo. Those are Very pricey.
Even had,
Oh.
here, let me see. Copy. Go over here. Go over here. It even had, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
The original strings.
Oh,
I know
no
that's upside
way.
down, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. We'll get him. We'll get him on here. Whoa. Look at that. That is. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so. I didn't even know they shipped them in like that. That is crazy. I'll go ahead and grab my axe out in just a second, but I have to get the super chat right here. Nita, I am unbelievably grateful. This is holy mackerel. I know Lou is.
Nita is a
absolutely as
very
well.
generous lady, and we appreciate her very, very much.
Whoa. Thank you
And
so
she
much for
obviously,
this.
if I may, I've never met her. I don't know anything else about her. Well, little. She has great taste in podcasts. I can say
Yes.
that without fear of contradiction.
That
Anyway,
is
there's
absolutely
my
for sure. That is
uh,
amazing. Thank you so much, Lou. Love his much info. You impact Vash always. Love your show and appearance. Blessings. Hey, I thank you for that. This
oh,
hooking up with.
here's what kind
Oh,
of
go ahead.
shape it was in. I mean, for something that old.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Whoa. Okay. Let me just see this now. Put this up on the screen right here. Wow. Man, that's incredible.
Yep.
I mean, this was
By the
19.
way, I bought that for $50 more than Nita just sent us. Believe it or not.
What? The
Yeah.
1930s?
Yeah. It was a used instrument sale at a guitar store that I used to frequent because they did various shows. And I was learning to play the mandolin. And I have a mandolin that my grandmother brought over from Poland in the day. And well, here, if you want to see a fine result of the luthier's craft, let's see.
Luthier being a guitar
Here,
builder.
here.
Nita, you are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for spreading pixie dust my way. Because man, oh man, I mean, it blows me away. Honestly.
Here's the backside of my grandmother's mandolin.
Oh yes. Whoa.
And here's, let's see, the front
Man.
side. Now, in this case, the case is not original to it because she didn't have one. But she brought that over with her on the boat from Poland in 1921. Here, let's see.
Got out at the right time.
There you go.
Good. Whoa, this instrument is beautiful. Oh my goodness gracious, guys. Look at that. Whoa, that is
See, you came for
beautiful
movies, you got
instrument.
music. What a deal.
Well, I mean, that's part
There,
of the
that
whole
ought to
thing,
do
right?
it. Here's the last of those, but
Yeah.
anyway.
I will. Let me see here. Wow, beautiful. The inlay work is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Just gorgeous. I love that.
And I should say, in the old country or the new, my grandmother was not a wealthy woman going to a fine musician. This is just something she got, in the day as a little girl in Warsaw.
Wow. Well,
It makes you wonder
Lou,
how many millions of them were destroyed in the war and other things. So,
so many, I'm sure, but not this fine gem. Oh man, that is absolutely beautiful. Give me a second here, Lou. Why don't you go ahead and take over for me for just 3
oh, well, I
seconds
noticed in the
here.
chat, Bob and Maria, you're absolutely right. The Black Tower was kind of a copy of the Seagram's building. And eventually, of course, they sold the studio to them. But anyway, and I always loved that building because it's where Glenn Howard lived, from the name of the game. If anybody else besides me remembers that wonderful show. let's see, with Gene Barry and Robert Stack and Tony Franciosa, and great music also. All these shows had such great music, and we can't play any of it here because somebody else on YouTube can, but not us, darn it. But that was the first of the Wheel shows. Dave Grusin did the theme for Name of the Game. And yeah. But that was the idea, that they had these stars that didn't want to make a full season of anything because they were busy. So they did, out of the 25 or 30 shows, they each did 10 or so. Anyway.
So this
there we go.
This one's my beauty here. I'm going to go ahead and put myself full screen if I can. I don't know if it's possible. Oh, yeah, there we go. There you go.
Ooh, look at there with the target. So you're not afraid of the audience shooting at you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now this is a...
And the music goes round and round, and it comes out here.
Yep. Zach Wilde special right here, signed by Zach and the band there. Black Label Society. So that's kind of my...
That's gorgeous. Special.
Yeah, it was a heck of a time getting that bullseye on there, but it all worked out, and I just love this thing to death. Very much. It's one of my absolute favorites. A lot of time working at McDonald's to make that happen. So
you were working at McDonald's, and I was driving a truck picking up French fryer grease from McDonald's in my day.
Oh, really?
Yes, everybody at my father's rendering plant had a full set of fantastic kitchen tools because these idiots at McDonald's would drop them in the grease and not want to dive in after them. So we had great spatulas and forks and things. But those were the days. Anyway.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that, Tom F. Not wrong about that. That's for sure. You know, McDonald's was a very interesting experience. It taught me, humility, taught me customer service for one, and a whole bunch of other things that use to this day. So very valuable experience, that is for sure. Yeah, how did you acquire that guitar? Yeah, it like I said, Nita, a lot of McDonald's hours to make that happen right there.
I was going to say the answer is it's like that old thing about the guy in New York who approaches somebody and says, "How do you get to Carnegie Hall?" And he says, "Practice, practice, practice."
Yeah, a lot of it was. I think it was like $3,500 at the time. Then I spent a considerable amount just to transform it into a kind of a Zach Wilde special right there. But the it just teaches you to kind of to work hard for your goals, and I think it's a valuable lesson. Very, very cool. Used on an album actually. My cousin is in a band and used it to record an album, so that's a super cool thing, and it's just absolutely incredible. Sorry guys, I know we were trying to talk about movies, but we got a little bit sidetracked.
Anybody got any more movie questions?
Yeah,
I bet we've got answers. I don't promise they're all true, but I promise they're interesting.
Absolutely, 100%. Speaking of Lou, that thumbnail that I made for this specific show right here. This wasn't the original Psycho House. I believe this was a replica that was made, I think, for the second or third one. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. Oh, you put the end in. Good for you. Sneaky. But yeah, that's the one that's there on the backlot, but that wasn't the original. But I think they found one somewhere and used it because the whole deal with that movie was to do it cheap, to do it on a TV budget, with the TV crew that was doing the Hitchcock show. But the glamour trams.
Oh, the glamour trams. So that picture right there is pretty cool because it's actually a modern photo of Universal touting the glamour trams that have returned this summer season. I believe they're just about to end that promotion, which is very, very sad. But just it's so cool that they can bring some of the stuff back. And what was cool before is cool again, and that's very cool. Josh Hammond says, Lou, did you write, direct, or produce anything? Now I know you can't
Yes.
give away your identity, but
Many things.
mm-hmm,
And design
mm-hmm.
sets and special effects and props. And I'm a jack of all trades. What can I say?
And folks, Lou is the jack of all trades.
Oh, there
He
she is.
writes
My dear
lyrics.
friend, Lady True North. My goodness. Thank you so much. From
Thank you,
Real
man,
Butter.
generous today. I very much appreciate all the support, guys. Thank you, Lady True North, Canadian $5. Hey yo, Vash, Night of Nostalgia, and Court Lester Lou, a pop-up top-up for your popcorn with real butter pocket fund, waving like mad from Vancouver Island. Well,
Yes, that's
hello
a dear
there.
friend of
Wave
mine.
to you right back right there.
Dear friend of mine. Who
Lady
once
True
upon a
North is
time
awesome.
joined me at the Wilderness Lodge at Disney World.
Just fantastic. Love Lady True North. Love Nita. Love all you guys. Love Josh.
And say hi to
everybody
the
in there,
bear.
chat.
Her wonderful
Yes.
husband is nicknamed the Bear. So
Oh, so you really do know her. Okay, gotcha. I gotcha. Very, very cool. Yeah, the weather.
no, Nita, I had no connection with it that way. Absolutely not. I just, as I always tell people, I pay attention and I have a good memory and I'm interested. And so if I'm interested, I dive in. That's all. Anyway, Nook. I love that movie too. Great movie. My favorite year. Um, and by the way, Nita, you don't deliver renderings, you pick them up. You deliver them elsewhere because they're fragrant.
That's great. Mr. Bear says hi back. Hope you're having fun. Very much
Oh, well, we're
indeed.
getting by. We're getting by with a little help from our friends, of which you two are one. Anyway,
Thank you.
There he is, the bear himself. My goodness. Yeah, they live in a lovely part of Vancouver Island up there. And no, that's okay. All of my moments are silly and sarcastic, Nita. I hope you realize that. My favorite genre. God.
Ooh, that's a good question right there.
Gee, if it changes, it's what am I into at the moment? For example, as I was telling Vash before we began, I somehow missed when it began the entire John Wick thing. But in the most recent awards stuff, they sent me a screener of number 4, and I watched it, fell in love with it, and now I've got all of them, and I've been watching them here over the last couple of days. And as I told Vash, I said, I knew somebody on the internet would do this. I wouldn't have to or want to. I entered into, and you can all do this with Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever. Mm-hmm. How many people has John Wick killed over the 4 movies? The announced answer is, are you ready? You want to guess? 450.
I love John Wick franchise so much.
Well, what's exciting to me is that the guy who directed them is doing the reboot of Highlander.
Yep. Heard about
and
that.
And I found, by the way, in the 3rd movie, in Parabellum, I don't know whether it was a sign that existed or they put it in as a preview cookie. You saw it too? There's a store on one of the streets, McLeod, as in spelled like the Clan McLeod of Connor McLeod, the Highlander. One of the neon signs. So that's
I didn't catch that.
Easter egg stuff. It's about 2.5, 20 minutes in, something like that. The Bates Motel. That. Yeah, well.
I love that. I love the John Wick franchise. Love Keanu Reeves. But it's a very imaginative world. Obviously, it's got some great lore.
Oh and God, the sets and the lights and it's just it's movie making. By golly,
dude.
Speaking Absolutely. Of which, there's a segue to that picture I sent you at the beginning of all this. Speaking of genres, another one I like are good courtroom dramas and good war movies, and I watched perhaps the best combination of the two, the other great one being A Few Good Men. But just the other day, just because it popped up on my Amazon, you want to watch this list, I watched again for the, I don't know, fourth or fifth time probably ever, The Caine Mutiny, which is a great movie. And in it, Van Johnson, who you'll all know as he used to say that he got paid by the freckle because he was the clean-cut, all-American blonde kid.
Right.
But what you don't know is that in 1943, he was in a serious car accident and got terrible scars on his face, which in every movie after that, the makeup people covered up. But for this movie, he said, no, let him show, because it would make sense that a naval officer might have had some injuries. So there's a little thing you didn't know, that those scars that you see right there are real. That's what he really looked like. Although this picture is kind of leaning towards the red a little bit more. That other one that I sent is a little more accurate to what you see on the screen. Yeah. But you see those across his face and underneath his eye? That's a broken windshield doing its work in a car crash. So there's a little movie trivia for you that you can get, well, anywhere else, but you'd have to look for it. We do it for you.
And there's also like there's so much about this gentleman and his story. Chicago Tribune did a whole big write-up of behind the facade of Van Johnson. I'm not going to go over it here because it's wild. But look at it, folks. It is crazy behind the scenes on this.
That was written when he passed away a couple of years ago, 2021.
Yes.
Anyway.
Oh man, so interesting, so crazy. Did not know that at all. I know Lou, you and I were kind of taken aback, and then going into his personal history.
Yeah, it's a heck of a story. And it's Judgment at Nuremberg, absolutely. And then, of course, as I mentioned, A Few Good Men with You Can't Handle the Truth.
Well, who can really? I guess that's the subtle theme for today, right? The truth, and who can handle it and who can't. But let's see.
Here's the funny thing about the truth. No matter how much they hide it and play with it and obscure it and alter it, the truth will out, as the saying goes.
Indeed.
And sometimes it just astounds me how people think they can get away with stuff. Surprise. Surprise. And, what they used to say, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up and all that. So anyway, yeah, that's true, Jen Monroe. Well, nowadays, I don't know. I mean, most of the action stars anyway enjoy their rugged visage. It's like, I earned this. Everybody from, certainly Stallone, but Jason Statham and people like that, they're rough-hewn, as they say. But if you think about it and you compare, for example, is there a frame other than the very beginning of the first movie where John Wick doesn't have some sort of blood or facial injury somewhere? And you think about James Bond, never got nicked. In fact, the only thing in all of James Bond I can think of that's even close to John Wick is that first Daniel Craig movie where he does all that kind of parkour stuff running up the side of that building. But anyway, Wick is a unique thing. And like I say, the fact that the guy that made it is going to be doing the Highlander fills me with positive anticipation.
I'm thinking about this now. You're right. There was definitely a changing of the tide when it came to, okay, we want our heroes never to get roughed up or tumbled. And then it's like, okay, we want them to get roughed up as much as we possibly can. I think the Die Hard films, they kind of took
but of course,
crazy direction.
That's that. Now, see, there's a parallel between Bruce Willis and Sean Connery in that they both decided to reveal their baldness as their career went on. They were bald to begin with, but they hid it. So anyway.
That's fantastic. Always looking for those connections, though. That is for sure. Have another question from Josh Hammond right here. What's your favorite superhero movie? Now that's interesting because Lou, do you have one?
I guess I would have to say the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy.
I was just about to say that.
I mean,
And
and I'm, a lot of other good ones out there, old and
yeah,
new. But
yeah.
in fact, for what it's worth, a little romantic, whatever. When my wife and I got married at the wonderful Treasure Island in Las Vegas, which they advertised their wedding chapel as, quote, a great place to walk the plank, back when they were pushing the pirate theme a little overboard, they told us to give them a song, each of us separately, that they wanted to symbolize our love for each other. And my wife picked Can You Read My Mind from Superman. So, by the way, Superman will be a special guest genre guys thing because Hangry Tables has to do a little tourism. And so Marvin is going to join us, Marvin the Monster, and do Superman here in a couple of weeks. So you can look forward to that. And anyway, there, that covered a lot of ground in one answer. But
Very
yeah,
much so.
I absolutely, I like to judge to some degree, not always, but to some degree, how much do I like a movie? If I'm just turning channels and it's on, will I stick with it and watch the rest of it? And I
That's a
certainly do
good.
that with the Godfather movies, and I
Yep.
certainly do that with the Dark Knight trilogy.
It's so good. It almost transcends a superhero film, in my view. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're
Mm-hmm.
just incredible stories, incredible thrillers, action, and just all of the above. Man, did I love that trilogy so much? Dark Knight especially, but the whole thing is, in my view, very very strong, very very good. And I do agree with you, Lou. Whenever it's on television, it's like okay, I'll go ahead and sit here for a spell. That's for sure. Great questions. Let's see here. Any stories about Dirty Dozen?
Sure. What do you want to know? Uh, I mean, all of this, most of these trivia things you can look up, but well, of course, that Lee Marvin had serious, real wartime experience before he ever did any of these war movies. He was wounded at I think at Iwo Jima or Saipan, I forget, one or the other. And when people asked him about it, he said, "I hope we can say this on our pristine air, and Jonas will spank us later." But he said, "Yeah, I got shot in the ass," and he did. But anyway, the Dirty Dozen, yeah, wow. Uh, there is an example, and there's a very, very good book about the making of it. And by the way, the book of that story is, if anything, even better than the movie, I think. Um, the big objection to the movie that was made within the studio about how much that bit where Jim Brown runs that gauntlet at the end and drops those bombs on all those people down there, they
Mhm.
thought that was pretty rough for that era. That was, slaughter. On the other hand, what was that great Arnold line in True Lies where he says, "But you killed people?" And she says, "Yeah, but they were all bad," So um, I think The Dirty Dozen is a pretty perfect movie, actually. And that whole thing with the war game with Robert Ryan, the casting of all of those guys, and that there's all those little moments like when they're mad because they don't get hot water and the guards do,
Mhm.
and Lee Marvin turns to the guy who's his assistant and he says, "You think the Clint Walker character, I can't think of his name now. You think he ever shaved with hot water in all of his life living in the hills? But we've got an issue that they can all hang together with, and I'll take it." Um, and by the way,
Mhm.
I read the book, and I guess you'd have to look up the guy's name is Nathanson, who wrote the original novel.
Mhm.
Um, he wrote a sequel where that character that Lee Marvin plays winds up in Southeast Asia during the end of the war, and it's pretty great too. So if you want to go investigate that, you could do that. But Dirty Dozen, was shot in England, and they had a grand old time. And man, just what a cast! What a great cast! Oh, originally, Trini Lopez wasn't supposed to get killed, but
Really?
he had the shoot ran long, and he had a gig in Vegas that he could have got out of, and Frank Sinatra told him you should do the gig in Vegas because he had that song. What is it? lemon tree very pretty and the lemon flower. I'll stop there, promise. Copyright. And Sinatra advised him to walk away from the movie, so they killed him in the plot. But originally he was supposed to survive, so there's that.
Wow.
Yeah, so
I did not know that. I did not know that.
and they
Neat.
built that chateau and blew it up, and that was quite a project. So that was not a real building, but I mean, the interiors obviously were sets. But and God, Telly Savalas was pretty slimy in that, wasn't he?
Oh, yes.
And they gave him a name, Maggot, for God's sakes.
Very funny, very cool.
Being all those dwarves, you know, they are what they're billed as. How's that, Don? Enough? I hope so, because it's all I remember right now. I'll go look up some more for next time.
I think that's quite a bit right there. And in your opinion, Lou, is there a difference between film and movies?
I'm tempted to be irreverent, but I respect the asker enough not to. I was going to say $10 million or $100 million. Films of movies. You mean sequels? You mean, I don't know. I mean, look, I am still amazed. Well, not really. That so many people on YouTube talk about, well, we filmed this, and they didn't film a damn thing. They videoed it, but they digitized it. But you have to remember, movie comes from moving pictures, and film is the stuff they're recorded on. But other than that, I think the terms are pretty interchangeable. I just do. But if you're asking me, do I like a good popcorn, no pretentiousness, nothing too deep, let's get on board and go for a ride? Absolutely, I do. Absolutely, I do. And, I used to say, although I am not of the opinion that you can't make a point or send a message with a movie, as long as you don't stand on the screen and preach at you the way that so many do now. Supposedly Samuel Goldwyn said, if you want to send a message, call Western Union. So of course he was, he said when they wanted to go on location, he'd say a rock is a rock, a tree is a tree, shoot it in Griffith Park, which is right in town, in the zone. Remember? See how all this stuff connects? My God.
TMZ, 30 minutes.
Anyway, if a movie is not of quote unquote importance, if it's not a film, if it takes you out of your own life for 2 hours, that's probably good enough. Because although the movie may not have changed anything about your real life, it changed you, and it might change your perspective on it. I mean, the first thing any great entertainment does, whether it's a concert or a movie or anything, a good book, is take you away from where you are to another place, another time, doesn't have to be literally another time, but it gives you people, and it should be people you give a damn enough about to know what happens to them. And when you come back, I don't come out of John Wick able to kill 250 people, but I do come out saying, wow, that was fun, So, well, of course, the preachy part, Nita, is in the style. And I would suggest nowadays the ones that are the most shrill and the most preachy, it's because they have no style, because they don't know how to do anything else. In other words, if the message comes across from the story, and certainly all good stories have a message, which is overcome the bad guys and win, or don't, but learn something or whatever. But if the message is what matters, all the rest of it gets ignored because they haven't got the talent to do it that way. So but it's tough in a business which is so lucrative and where there's so much money for individuals, but also behind it and the companies and the advertising and the power of hundreds of millions of dollars going on. It's really hard to tell people, sorry, killing things here. Well, I'm not John Wick, but I did get that gnat. By God, it was a reflex.
Nice.
It's hard to tell people their baby's ugly.
Yep.
I don't know if any of you know that famous story about the guy on the train sees a woman with a baby and he starts laughing and she says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, that's just the funniest looking kid I ever saw." And he's laughing uncontrollably. The woman is very irate and very angry, and she calls the conductor. She pulls the emergency cord, and the conductor comes over and says, "What's the problem? What's the problem?" And she says, "This man has insulted me. I want this entire railroad to kick him off and pay me." And the conductor's trying to make peace. He says, "Ma'am," he says, "look, I don't know what happened. I wasn't here. I just want to make you happy. So please, would you come with me to the first class dining car? Have whatever you'd like on us, and I'll look around. I'm not sure, but maybe they've got a banana for your monkey." So, but I mean, I worked with directors who were not very good, but they had the title and they had the check, and so they thought they were. I've worked with others who knew better. So I haven't watched The Acolyte. I should make that very clear. I had no interest in watching it. I'm sure, much more entertainment out of watching everybody rip it than I did or would have from the show itself. I don't pay for Disney Plus. I never will. Thanks. Goodbye. So and so all of this, are they going to do a second season or not? Well,
no. There's no way. There's no way. Lou, there's no way.
I don't care is my point, because I didn't watch the first one.
Speaking of second season, too expensive. TLJ Screwjob, I think, has a great final question to kind of sign us off right here. Lou, how did the film industry go from?
It's who's deciding whether it's too expensive.
Yep.
Is it I'm going to be famous and it's going to be wonderful, and then it's not too expensive? Is it the company's going to lose money? Then it's too expensive. It's a question between people who have a stake in the overall game and people who only have a stake in their ego. That's all. That's all. As I've mentioned in jobs in the industry, the Directors Guild, which I'm happy to be a retired member of, among other things, covers not just directors, but production managers, assistant directors, and they work at the pleasure of a director. The director gets approval over their team, which is an interesting thing, because when the director says, "I want 500 extras," and the production manager or the first AD is the guy who has to tell them, "No, we can afford 20," that is not a good relationship. There is an adversarial relationship, because we walk that line between management and art, and So, well, too expensive compared to what? And that's why I keep saying over and over on all of these shows that we have to change the scorecard, because it used to be, how many tickets did we sell? That's not what Acolyte was about. Acolyte was about how many subscriptions do we sell? The answer is you probably lost some. So that if you had made it for $200 or for $2, if you lost viewership overall to the channel and thus revenue, it was too expensive. In other words, it isn't the big number that's expensive. It's the result of the work that's expensive.
Right.
Okay. So you get the difference. I mean, that's how you got to keep score is what is the, and if you lose sight of the goal, if you lose sight of the net result that you're shooting for, then you're not in business. You're in masturbatory la la land. If I can pronounce that badly on purpose so we don't get banned. But you got to go to the premiere and you got to be on TV and everybody interviewed you and you're a celebrity, you're famous, but not for the work you do. I've always said that I define myself as a person, never mind movie business, by my values, my goals, my human relationships and accomplishments, not by what kind of sex I like or what kind of anything else. Your core values are not about whether you like pineapple on pizza or not. Okay.
Right.
So anyway, I'm
And
waxing.
and if you're going to put your core values into films or television or whatever, at least, I don't know, at least
Remember those
do
buttons
it.
I mentioned about it's only TV.
That's true.
It's only TV.
That's it. That's it exactly.
So
Man, keep coming in with the questions. Okay.
right?
Okay. Well, let's do two more here. From Nita, have you ever walked out of a film, Lou?
Yeah, all the time. Didn't I tell that
Really?
story? Oh,
No.
I'll tell you a fun story. Many years ago, they decided to have. They said everybody else has one. How come we don't have one? So they started what they called FilmX, the LA Film Festival, and in those days there were two theaters across from the Century Plaza.
Mhm.
That building has been torn down and built again with something else since then. But and they took over those theaters and they showed all the great movies. And of course, being a cineast, as they say, I signed up for a lot of tickets. And a lady friend and I went to see what was then Ingmar Bergman's newest movie. And I can't tell you which one it was because I honestly don't remember. But, you know, Ingmar Bergman is a wonderful artist, but he makes very long, very dark movies sometimes. And we sat there for an hour and a half. And I looked at her and she looked at me and we kind of gave a little nod saying, "You want to blow this pop joint?" And the answer was yes. And we got up to leave. So I'm coming out through the lobby and approaching me is a guy in a FilmX t-shirt, a volunteer helper, you know, for the festival,
Mm-hmm.
who I knew from film school, from USC.
Mm-hmm.
And he presumed we were just coming out to go to the bathroom or get more popcorn or something and not leaving. And he said, "Oh, are you watching the new Bergman?" I said, "Yeah, we were." And he said, "Wonderful." I said, "Honestly, I've liked a lot of his other ones better. I don't think it's one of his best." And he said with this big beatific smile, "Well, Bergman failing is better than 90% of that Hollywood crap." And I thought, thank God that's not me. God, that's not me. Because you know the best thing about the fact that I get all these screeners so I don't have to go to see the movies that I vote on for the awards?
Mm-hmm.
The pause button. And they all come with instructions. After you've watched this disc, of course, now more and more of them are streaming rather than disc. But
Sure.
it's been coded to you, and you can't because they're worried about
Priority. Yeah.
piracy. And they all command you that you literally have to destroy the disc. Some of the happiest moments over the last 5 or 10 years of that have been watching about 10 minutes of some piece of junk and going, "Oh boy, I get to break this one up into little pieces before I throw it away." I mean, I take relish in destroying some of these things. But yeah, I've walked out of them absolutely because, I still apply that thing from old days National Lampoon when they did a thing about the National Lampoon. I know I've mentioned this 100 times, but I'll do it again for those who might not have heard it. They had what they call the "suddenly everyone was run over by a truck" school of dramatic criticism, which is when the scene changes, when you turn the page, when you go to the next moment on the stage, if suddenly everyone was run over by a truck, would you give a damn? And if the answer is no, it's time to stop watching or reading or
Mm-hmm.
and there's too much like that out there. And so,
Oh,
yeah,
there's
I
way.
absolutely. And when you say from the beginning, Nita, I don't know about the very beginning. Maybe it's kind of more interesting if you don't know what the hell's going on at the very beginning, because at the very beginning, you still have an impetus to try and figure it out.
Right.
But certainly at some point, it's got to start making sense and it's got to start connecting with you. And even if what you said about villains earlier, Vash, uh, even if it's that they're nasty, awful, evil people,
Mm-hmm.
uh, or they're people with a good cause, but they're being nasty about it, or they're charming but evil. I watched again the other night Inglorious Bastards, and Chris Waltz is the most charming, marvelous, wonderful bad guy, but man, he's evil, and he
Yes.
knows that you know that that's so, and that's why the ending works. Because if it wasn't, you would think Pitt and his guys were just
Mm-hmm.
monsters. So,
The introductory scene sets it up so
oh
beautifully.
yeah, oh yeah,
Oh,
oh
so good. You're right. I mean, you got to care, and you have to have actors and performances screenplays that really suck you in
Yeah.
and get you to care. So that's very appropriate.
Well,
We've got
of course
okay,
that was about people choosing roles that they knew they that worked with their audience
right.
in the old days too. And now it's more like, yeah, show me the money. So I don't know.
Terrible. We've gotten this request. Two people, Wolfman or Frankenstein monster. Who wins? Who wins?
Well, on pure strength, Frankenstein, of course.
Yeah.
On wiliness, which is implied by Wolfman, I don't know. I guess Wolfman does. But
Yeah.
remember, please, both of them have something in common.
Mm,
And that is pathos. Both of them don't want to be what they are.
yeah.
Larry Talbot does not want to be the Wolfman and hates it. And Frankenstein just wants to be human and hates that he has overreacted in so many different ways. So I'm so looking forward to Dark Universe,
Oh, I
that
can't.
epic universe. What they're going to do. I trust them. Let's put it that way. I trust them. You know, it's
I do
funny.
too.
There's all these awful, terrible, endless, pointless clickbait stories about theme park biz, as you know,
Mhm.
not on our channels, but elsewhere. I saw one the other day. Critics respond to the reveal of the new Harry Potter stuff. They made a whole land about the worst movie I ever saw, which
Oh,
was he didn't like Fantastic Beasts 3.
give me a
And I'm
break.
going, well, if that's the worst movie you ever saw, you haven't seen many movies, fella. You know, and it's like in the midst, somebody somewhere said, well, if we present that headline as an alternative to all the people excited and happy, we'll get clicks. And they got mine for a while. And then it was like, how many 100 pages of stuff to put ads in between can they do before they get to the point? Or, you know, you'll see these
Well, that's
things.
what they're for.
Famous chain going bankrupt. It'll take you 10 minutes to get to where they tell you the name of that chain.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know, and I keep telling people, Lou, look, just like a great character, a great villain, or whatever that really sucks you in, it really is the quality of the execution. I mean, honestly, truly. I mean, when
Oh,
people
sure.
heard that Heath Ledger was going to be the Joker, everybody mocked it. Everybody made fun of it. Everybody did this, that, and the other thing. And then people saw the movie and went, oh, he really brought the goods. He was
And
one of
then
the best. I heard the same thing about Avatar when it was coming to Disney's Animal Kingdom. Oh, it was most horrible thing. Doesn't belong to Disney Park. All that. And then when it opened, everybody was like, oh, okay, they brought the goods. Don't be dissuaded by the IP, folks. That's just the theme. It's really about the execution because you can take an amazing IP like Star Wars and still screw it up, or you can take a theme I don't know, Night Before Christmas, for example, which didn't do all that well at the box office, but when you put it in a Haunted Mansion, you set it to music, it comes to life.
Well,
Just saying.
the perfect example is
Mhm.
if you didn't do Paris, what would you do at this point with Harry Potter? And those buildings and those murals and the architecture and that whole Art Nouveau fluted stuff, it's just beautiful. It's
So
just
good.
beautiful. And I always tell, back when the first big nostalgia craze started back in the late 70s. And, I mean, I almost got a movie made. It was going to be called Chickaboom. And it was going to be a take on Carmen Miranda and that sort of thing. But the point was not, it's good because it's old. The point was, it's good because it's good.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
and the fact that they were able to change horses as far as the ride, not being in that realm, but the
Mhm.
show being in that realm, and
Mhm.
the hybridization of those two sets of characters, I think it's great. It just shows they're listening. That's all. It
I think
shows
it's
they're
absolutely
listening.
phenomenal. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Um,
and
yeah,
that
but
goes back to our earlier discussion about preachy movies.
mhm.
If you ask the audience what they want, you might learn something. If you tell them what they want, you might be wrong for several hundred million, billion, trillion bucks worth of somebody else's money.
Yep. Uh, r- r- Follow the Bradleys Fun is in the chat. What is going
Oh,
on? Are we all
hey.
meeting up at Epic?
Not August, for God's sakes.
Yeah, not
I'm
August.
seeing all these people saying, "Oh, we should have it in August," and I'm going,
No,
I don't want to be there in August ever.
no,
You have to be. You live there. I don't have to be. So there.
no. It is the worst. I've done this twice now in my life, and I hope I never do it again. It's the only time I've ever been in Florida is during the summer. No, not doing it again.
No, I
I'm gonna
always used to go back in the
November,
early
October.
days. I would go in January.
Ooh, okay.
And because the snowbirds hadn't really started coming down till end of January, beginning of February, and the Christmas was over. And I remember one day, it was late January, and I'm standing there at the Transportation and Ticket Center waiting for the first monorail of the day. And I'm talking with this kid who told me his father worked in the landscaping department. And they had just had a one of those cold snaps, that you hear hurting the produce and the citrus dying and all that.
Oh yeah.
He said they lost $250,000 worth of plants at Epcot, and they'd be replaced within the next 3 days.
Oh. Wow.
So those were the days when they said, no, we have to make it work, and therefore we will. And they had greenhouses with replacements somewhere ready, even if they had to ship them across country. So, there's a price if you do and a price if you don't, as they say.
I suppose so. Thank you so much, Ron, for attempting to do that. Very much appreciate it. And I mean,
for those out there watching us who haven't seen Follow the Bradleys Fun, you're missing really good stuff. Especially, and although I like all the things you do, go look at that train ride they took up to, what was it? I forget what town now, Ron. I'm sorry. But the local commuter train where they went to have lunch. And we used to do that in Valencia and take the train out to Lancaster or Acton and have lunch, or go downtown and have lunch. And that's kind of fun to do. That's a lot of fun.
Oh.
That Greek place that you went to looked fantastic. Golly. Oh, it was Stewart. Is it Stewart where the other airport is?
Sanford.
That's it. Sanford. Yes. Pardon me.
There you go. There you go.
That's a fun video. And this is a man with a lovely family, and they have fun, and you can have fun with them. And you don't have to be there in August like they do.
That's for sure. Oh, I do feel sorry. And by the way, folks, to anybody in Florida right now dealing with this upcoming tropical storm,
you're going to get a lot of rain, but you're going to get worse rain. We have family in Savannah, and man, they're talking 30 inches of rain.
Whoa.
In Savannah in the next couple of days. So,
hearts go out to anybody affected, by the way.
Stay dry, stay safe.
At
least it'll wash all the sewage away at Magic Kingdom.
And on that note, guys, thank you so much for joining us.
We're not going to end with that, are we? We do have to end.
Lou,
give them the email, give them the ways to get in touch with us, because
absolutely 100%. But I just wanted to let you guys know that there is the theming of sewage running down in Liberty Square. Well, now it's actually come to life. So Disney actually bringing that, really stepping up a thematic game there. And that deserves praise. If you want to go ahead and email us your questions.
What I put in our Slack, I said that the good news is that it'll take people's minds off the brown water or lack of it in Tiana's, and that I understand they're going to be charging $300 a head for a behind-the-scenes tour at Listen to the Land to show you how that sewage is going into the vegetables that you're getting in the restaurants that are being grown there.
Incredible. They never miss a trick, do they? Well,
that's
in order
joke.
to
It's not happening.
Oh, I know.
Am I getting a Nightmare Before Christmas overlay? Me personally, no. But I don't know. I think Disneyland is, but I'm not there anymore. I have left the building, as they say.
Well, actually, Night Before Christmas is the overlay on Haunted Mansion is actually in session right now, so you can go ahead and go over there.
Because it's Christmas in July, August, whatever.
And
Uh,
that's actually why I did
oh, you got a
the
point.
whole,
I get you now. He's saying you're a ghost. Why not? Why am I not part of the overlay?
I
Well,
see.
there's a lot of different ghosts. I'm more kind of, uh, topper, ready with a drink and a good time and a Saint Bernard. But what's my favorite holiday? Gee, I should be loyal and say Hanukkah, I guess, but
Sorry,
it's
I
all
we
holidays
laughed
for
there.
me these days, gang. I'm a bum for a living, so as you can tell because I'm here.
That's kind of one of the funny things. Partially why I went with this thumbnail specifically is because Disney always starts their Halloween time in like August. So I was like, well, let's go ahead and make it fun. Let's join them. So there you go. If you want to go ahead and email us, you can do it at the email that you see on screen, t3ponline@yahoo.com. We actually, we very much do still use it. So please go ahead and keep those questions coming in, and we'll feature them on the show. We will definitely answer them to the best of our degrees. And thank you so much for supporting us for this amazing show. I mean, people love this show, Lou. They love you, and I am just. I am lucky enough to be a fly on the wall in this whole thing. Thank
Oh,
you
for
so
God's sakes,
much.
you're a lot more than that.
Oh,
And Vash also does the marvelous enhanced edits of all of our genre guys stuff when it comes over to this channel. And the one we
yep.
just put up was A Bridge Too
Was
Far.
that's right. Bridge Too
And
Far. Historic
if you
heroics.
haven't seen that movie, would you just when you're done here, go turn it on? It's available. It's out there. And know when you're watching, one of the little bits of trivia that we will give you in that movie is John Addison, who did the marvelous, wonderful music. He was there. He was in a tank crew in that battle. I mean, these people, geez, what a show. What a great show that is. And
Incredible. And a star-studded cast. My goodness, great.
oh, and if you're a member over on the Pro Show, the next one coming out, I guess in a couple of days, is a movie I'd never even heard of that Lauren brought up that is so good. It out Matrixes Matrix, which is probably why it got ignored because it's kind of the same plot idea and it came out the same year. And it's called The 13th Floor. And it's really fun. Asks some very interesting questions about the future and the past and cyber stuff. So we run the gamut on that show. We really do.
Absolutely, and it will be hitting this channel in about 90 days. But if you want to get a heads up on that,
Want to be a member? Want to be a member? What was that from? Anyway,
go ahead and go over to
it was a Betty
Pro
Boop
channel,
cartoon.
become a member, and see for yourself. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it was a Betty Boop cartoon. That song. This random stuff that rattles around my head, sometimes comes from strange places. Anyway,
Well,
looking for lore in all the wrong places, I guess, is the deal.
That's funny. That's great. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Follow the Bradley's Fun, Josh Hammond, Nita, and just everybody who has donated, Captain John D, Lady True North. Thank you so much for everything, for sticking around with us, for supporting us the way you do, for commenting, for being in the chat. Very much appreciate everything you do. If you like this video, please like this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It is the best way to follow us. Also, you can hit that bell notifications. But every single day at 6:30 a.m. Pacific or 9:30 a.m. Eastern is when new content debuts on this channel. So definitely follow us and like us. Thank you so much. Everybody here, have a wonderful day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.